Thank you for staying with us. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have with us Mr. Alex Kohan. He's the Vice President of the Israel Chamber of Commerce, and he flew to Cebu just for the show, and he's going back after this taping. So, good evening there, Mr. Alex Kohan.
Bobit, first, thank you for inviting me to participate in your show. It's a pleasure. It's my second time on Cebu, and I hope we can make this show become profitable for the mutual relations between Israel and the Philippines.
In the past few years, the Israeli ambassador would always come here to celebrate the Israeli founding anniversary, and we get to meet the ambassadors preview. And that's why I met you there, and we get to taste a little food from Israel. Of course, my parents have been to Israel. I have not been to Israel. Someday I'll make that a holy journey. But it was good to meet you because there is more to Israel. And it's, in my 12 years on the show, this is the first time I had someone to talk about Israel. So, but before talk about Israel, let's talk about you. What do you do in the Philippines? Why are you in this part of the world when you should be somewhere in America or something doing business?
Well, I came to the Philippines over a year and a half ago. I was running an online broker, and my company decided that as a CEO I should be opening a small call center operation here. The board decided to close the company, and I decided with my wife to stay in the Philippines because, first of all, it's a wonderful place, a different experience to be here in Asia, in such a gorgeous country. And the other one is this is a hotbed for new business opportunities that we would like to take advantage of. You mentioned America. I grew up in America.
You grew up in America.
But that was in the 20th century. In the 21st, it's Asia's century. So I think I deserve to be here to take advantage of it.
So that's why Israel is very advanced, despite its being ancient. It's one of the most modern nations on earth with its technology.
Well, this is a remarkable success story of Israel and the Jews coming from the tragic events of World War II to build a state in an unfriendly neighborhood with no natural resources other than just willingness to continue to move on and brains. Today, the state of Israel is maybe the half of New Jersey. The population is half of Metro Manila. And we are second to the United States on companies publicly listed in the NASDAQ exchange.
Second to the United States?
Yes.
Really? I didn't know that you were that. I thought the second would have been England or Japan.
Actually, we produce more technology-based patents than most countries in Europe, and this is what we do when you don't have natural resources.
Yes, I agree. Cebu doesn't have much natural resources, so we use our own natural resources, the people, and it's where we are strong with our own people. And I guess Israel is the same thing.
Yes, and in the beginning of the States, we have to consider that we didn't even have enough people, so we only needed to rely on the brains of the people.
Yes, yes. But when Israel became a state, and when was that? 1947?
1948.
48. Ben Gurion was your first prime minister, and in that time there was that relationship with the Philippines started. But you have a very nice article here that you wrote, and I'll read this. Of all the countries in Asia, this is an article by Mr. Kohan, the Philippines has arguably displayed more affection for Israel and the Jewish people than any other. Even before the founding of Israel in 1948, the late President Manuel Quezon publicly denounced Nazi persecution and opened the doors of the Philippines by offering 10,000 visas to European Jews. Sadly, only 1,200 visas were snapped up prior to World War II. Yet Filipinos' support for the rights of Jewish people was not limited to opposing the Holocaust. In 1947, 3 years after the death of Quezon, the Philippines became the only Asian country to vote in favor of the UN resolution that created the State of Israel. So that is something remarkable at that time, and we were not born yet. So to the ordinary Israel who probably don't know where the Philippines is, but they probably know that there are Filipino Catholics who go there to Jerusalem. What do you think? What is your thinking about us Filipinos?
First of all, we have to understand how the Jews act and react.
Okay.
The Jewish people do not forget.
Okay.
And we do not forget, and we did not forget about the Philippines being the only country in Asia to vote in the UN. And we did not forget about President Quezon giving this 10,000 visas when no other country in the world would be accepting Jews at the time.
Yes.
I think it's a remarkable story that we should keep on building and move forward, you know, to more friendly basis. Most Israelis, unfortunately, do not yet acknowledge the Philippines as a big business or touristic destination. There are several reasons. First of all, we're a small nation. We can be really tourists everywhere. There's a lot of influx of Israeli tourists in Thailand, but now more and more they're coming to the Philippines. In terms of business, also not yet many people are discovering the Philippines, although it's a huge country in Asia. It's being a little bit overshadowed by Vietnam, India, China, of course. But more and more Israelis now are acknowledging that the Philippines is a soft landing in Asia, being Catholic, English speaker, and a huge population that they're very cordial and friendly. So I foresee in the years to come that this will become an advantage in Filipinos attracting Israelis either for business or for tourism.
Well, you know, when I was little, we would have our Passion of Christ, which is our Holy Week. Okay, that's just prelude to your Passover, and then we would have skits or little drama skits on the street, where the Romans would be flogging Jesus Christ, and Caiaphas, the Sanhedrin, would be condemning him, and we would always say it was the Jews who killed our Jesus Christ. But when we were kids, it was like that. But when we start growing up and start reading the Bible, you will see that there is that religious difference. It was actually a religious difference. For the Jews at the time, they could not believe that the Messiah was going to be a divine one. That's the only difference. The Jews at the time were looking for a Messiah, a political Messiah, who could free them from the bondage of Roman occupation. So actually, that's how the differences changed. But since then, I've never met a Filipino who is anti-Semitic. We have always felt that, especially when you read the Old Testament, that it was now part of our history, that Israel was like our older brethren with a different religion. And that is why in the Philippines, the Jews are very much welcome. And in fact, in our family business, I remember very well, the manager of MGM, Metro Golden Mayer, was a Jew. And his name was Bronis Landau. And he died in Manila, and he was buried in Manila, in the Jewish cemetery in Manila. And I met him, and it's the first time I met a real Jew. And as I said, we do not have any anti-Semites here, as far as Filipinos are concerned. So in a way, you are very much welcome to the Philippines.
And I think as a Jew, I acknowledge that in a way it's strange to find the difference being acknowledged, yet not becoming anti-Semitic. And I think this is This is fantastic, unusual. I think both faith and both countries should build on it because it's unusual and because it's fantastic. I think it's also a good opportunity for Jews to acknowledge the political figure that Jesus was, and for Catholics to acknowledge that Jesus was actually a practicing Jew.
Yes.
And what does that mean? But all these differences, I'm a businessman, so I see them as opportunities. I see it as a glass that is half full, not half empty.
Yes. And I like the way you describe it, and we'll be back with Mr. Alex Kohan after this break.